Hey guys, this is Abhishek from gadgetshoes.com, and today we are going to compare all the budget phones which we have with us, and all these budget phones which we have are under the price segment of 8,000 rupees. So again, you can buy any one of them out of these four. You can buy them for a price of approximately 7,000 to 7,500 rupees. We have the Sony Xperia E1 Dual with us. As you can see, this is the Sony Xperia E1 Dual. We have the Nokia X with us, which is an Android phone from Nokia. We have Moto E, which is quite a popular phone in this particular price segment, and this one comes for 7,000 rupees, whereas the Sony Xperia E1 Dual comes for slightly less than 8,000 rupees, whereas this one will come for approximately 7,300 rupees in the market. And the latest edition in this particular segment, which is going to compete with Moto E much more closer, is the Micromax Unite 2. As you can see, so we have the Micromax Unite 2 as well, and this device is coming for the same price as the price which we have seen for Moto E. So this device is also coming for 6,999 or 7,000 rupees. So both of them are 7,000 rupees. This is 7,300 rupees, and Xperia E1 Dual as of now is approximately less than 8,000 rupees in the market, so which is the current pricing for this phone. So talking about all these phones, we are going to compare them in terms of specifications, how they come to each other closer in terms of specifications, and what all features are actually good on which one, and which one you should select if you have to make a choice in between one choice basically out of these four phones. If you would like to select one phone, which one it should be. So we are going to compare these phones on the basis of display size, on the basis of display resolution, the kind of build quality they have, the kind of form factor they give you, the kind of display size they have, the overall performance, the processor, RAM, and other things. So let's start the comparison. So first of all, I would like to say that in this particular list, when we talk about the display size is the biggest you can get on the Micromax Unite 2 at this particular price point, which is less than 8,000 rupees. You will get a 4.7-inch display, and the resolution of this display is 480 × 800. Again, the resolution which we have on this phone is the same resolution which we have on the Nokia X. So this one is having the same resolution just like the Micromax Unite 2, but again this one is on 4-inch display, whereas this is 4.7-inch display. So the pixel density is slightly better on this one. And again, when we talk about the Xperia E1 Dual, this one is also having a 4-inch display, and it is 480 × 800, the same resolution which we have on the Unite 2, but again this one will definitely have a better pixel density and a much clear display as compared to the Unite 2. And again, the one which is going to compete with Unite 2 and is better actually in terms of the display than Unite 2 is the Moto E. As you can see, Moto E has a higher display resolution out of all these four. So this device in terms of the display resolution is going to be higher. It will give you around 256 pixels per inch as far as the pixel density is concerned, and the display is going to be much crisp, clear, and again the color protection of this display is also good. Although when we talk about the display, this one is having a TFT display, but Nokia X has a IPS display, I guess. I'm not sure about the exact display technology of the Nokia X, but it looks like an IPS display, but it might be a TFT display. I'm not very much sure about it, but the display clarity and the resolution is much better on Moto E if you go for that. If you go for the display size, then you will get a higher display size on the canvas on the Micromax Unite 2 in comparison to all these four. So this one will give you a bigger display size in case you want to go for that. If you want a better display, a better color protection, you should go for Moto E. Talking about other things of these four devices, I would like to tell you about the camera. So if we take a look over the rear camera on these four devices, here we have the camera. The camera is much better than all these four on the Micromax Unite 2, which is a 5 megapixel camera. This one has LED flash, it can record high definition video, and it is an autofocus camera. Whereas if we take a look over the Moto E, we have a 5 megapixel camera which is a fixed focus camera, and this one can also not record high definition video, and it does not have LED flash either. When we talk about these two phones are even lesser in terms of the camera and not at all good. Even Moto E is slightly better than these two. So these two devices, the Nokia X and the Xperia Even Dual, have a 3.15 megapixel camera, again a fixed focus camera like the Moto E, and again the picture clarity is not at all good. And again this one also, these two devices also does not have the LED flash. When we talk about the front camera on these four devices, the best device in this case is going to be the Unite 2, because Unite 2 has a front camera which is a fixed focus 2 megapixel camera, whereas the Moto E does not have a front camera, Nokia X does not have a front camera, and the Xperia Even Dual also does not have a front camera. So again, in terms of the camera department, Moto E is a clear winner, and if you compare these two with this one, then this one is slightly better in terms of the camera as compared to these two. Again, the picture clarity is almost the same if you actually take a photo from any of these three devices, but the picture clarity is much clear, sharper, and a much better photo you can take both for long shot as well as for close-up if you use the 5 megapixel camera at the Unite 2, which is an autofocus camera. It can record high definition video and it does have LED flash as well. Talking about the battery which we have on these four phones, I would like to tell you about the battery. The battery on the Micromax Unite 2 is the highest. It is having a 2000 mAh battery. This one is again very much closer to this one in terms of battery backup, and again in terms of battery backup, Moto E is slightly better. This device has a battery of 1980 mAh, which is very there is a very minimal difference in terms of the power rating of the device of these two devices in terms of the battery. And again, the display is such that the kind of UI is optimized in such a way that you will get much better battery backup on Moto E if you compare it with the Unite 2. Unite 2 have a problem of battery drain, which is something which I have experienced in my review. So this device, even when it is sitting idle, it will actually drain the battery quite fast as compared to the Moto E, which is quite good in this department. Even when the device is sitting idle, you will get a decent battery backup, around 1 day battery backup you will get. Again, you can get 1 day battery backup on this one as well, but again the overall battery backup, if we talk about with the kind of moderate usage or the kind of heavy games if you would like to play, you will get a better battery backup on Moto E. Talking about the Nokia X also pretty good in the battery department. In terms of the overall battery backup, this device is again optimized, the UI is optimized in such a way that you will get a decent battery backup, and again this device has a less battery as compared to these two as well. So Nokia X has a 1500 mAh battery, and the Sony Xperia Even Dual has 1700 mAh battery. So the best battery backup out of all these four which you will get on the devices will be the Moto E. Moto E is again better in terms of battery backup, but again if you compare it with the Xperia Even Dual has a TFT display. This TFT display will actually give you a better battery backup with the same kind of usage if you do with Moto E or if you do with the Xperia Even Dual. So this device will give you better battery backup, but for some reason whenever you charge this device, the battery indicator, the LED notification light will keep on blinking, and there are something which happens with this device, because every time I keep this device idle, the amount of battery drain which happens on this device is even faster than the Micromax Unite 2. So in terms of the overall battery backup, I would suggest you to go for the Nokia X, which has the best battery backup out of all these four. And again, with the kind of idle usage, you can actually leave this device for days and nothing will happen to the battery, and the device battery will remain almost at the significant same point where you actually leave it, in case you are not having the SIM card inside or if it is in the airplane mode. Again, it will definitely drain, but the overall battery backup is quite decent on Moto E, on Nokia X, but on these two devices I am not at all happy with the kind of battery backup which I have seen. This one drains too fast in the idle scenario, even when you are not doing anything, and this one is again pretty okay, but still this one also drains faster when you leave the device idle with the SIM card inside or even without the SIM card inside. Talking about the weight of these devices, I would like to say that in terms of the weight, the Xperia Even Dual is lightest in terms of the weight. This is only 122 gram. If we compare it with the Nokia X is around 28 gram, which is slightly higher than this one, but again not a major difference in terms of the weight. If we compare it with the Moto E, this one is the highest in terms of the weight as of now, which is known, which is 142 gram. As far as the weight of Micromax Unite 2 is concerned, Micromax Unite 2 weight is as of now unknown. I'm not sure about the exact weight, but we will confirm that later on. But this device, if you compare it with Moto E, this one feels almost the same weight or sometimes lighter than the Moto E. So I would say this one is also pretty good in the weight department. It is not very heavy phone. You can compare it with these four in terms of the weight, and again it is also a pretty light phone even when it has a bigger display size. Now talking about the build quality, let's take a look over the back side of these devices. The front will always remain the same because it has glass, but we will also talk about the front. If we take a look over the overall build quality you have on these four phones, the best build quality you will get on the Moto E. When you hold this device in one hand, this device slightly feels heavier as compared to all other three devices, but again this one feels quite solid to hold in one hand, and the kind of build quality in the material which has been used on Moto E is actually better and pretty good, I would say. But on the other hand, Nokia X also has a very good build quality as well. So in the build quality department, the only device which come very closer to Moto E is the Nokia X. Nokia X has a pretty good build quality, Nokia is always known for the good build quality phones. So Nokia X has a pretty good build quality, and again we have actually tested this device with certain drop tests as well, and it has survived those tests. So this device is pretty good in particular in terms of the overall build quality, and this one comes very closer to Moto E. So these are the two devices which have the best build quality out of four, and again this one is also okay in terms of the build quality, but again you can easily notice that it is made up of, the back cover is actually made up of thin quality of plastic, and it is just like any other Micromax phone which you might have seen earlier. So nothing great in terms of the build quality department on this one, whereas this one is again made up of very thin quality of plastic, and the overall finishing of the phone is also kind of flimsy. So this one does not look to be very great in terms of the build quality, but these two devices are, and they have a pretty good back cover, a pretty nice finish, and when you hold these devices in hand, you can actually feel that the build quality is much better than these two. So in terms of build quality department, both of them wins this particular point in terms of the build quality. Talking about the front display, let's take a look over the front display and what kind of display protection you have for all these four phones. So talking about the display protection, the only device which has a pretty good display protection is this one, which is having the Corning Gorilla Glass 3 protection and a nano coating which actually protects this device from a splash of water from the front, which actually makes the display better as compared to all these three, because this display is better in terms of the color protection, in terms of the display resolution it is higher than all these three, but also it is stronger. So it is stronger because of the Corning Gorilla Glass 3 protection and a nano coating which actually protects the display and the phone from a splash of water. Whereas on this device the display is also strong. I'm not sure about if there is any kind of protection on the display on the Nokia X, but still this device is slightly better in terms of the display quality and the protection, because we have dropped this phone a couple of times in the drop test. That is why I'm saying that the device display is quite good in terms of the protection. However, it may not have that kind of protection which you can actually specify like Corning Gorilla Glass 3 or other thing, but in the drop test it never happened that the display of the phone actually was broken. So taking a look over these two devices have a kind of a brittle display, I would say. This display seems to be solid. There is no information as far as the display protection is there on the Micromax Unite 2 as of now, but I think there might be some protection on the display. This display looks fine. I have not dropped this phone, so I won't be able to comment much on the display strongness, but still I would say the weakest device in terms of the display strongness is going to be the Xperia Event Dual in this case. This one is going to be on the top, this one is going to be on the second position, this is going to be on the third position, and Xperia Event Dual is going to be on the fourth position. Talking about the performance in terms of the CPU, what kind of CPU you have. So you have a Snapdragon 200 CPU on this one, you have a Snapdragon 200 CPU on this one, you have 1.2 GHz dual core CPU on the Xperia Event Dual and the Motorola Moto E, whereas on these two devices we have a different kind of CPU. On this one we have a 1 GHz dual core CPU, which is a Snapdragon S4 Play CPU, whereas you have Snapdragon 200 CPU on this device. And on this one you have a CPU which is not from Qualcomm. It is the MediaTek 6582 chipset, 1.3 GHz quad core. So in terms of the cores, if you want to compare, this one is the quad core CPU which it has, and then you have the Moto E, which is a dual core CPU, Snapdragon 200. Then we have the Xperia Even Dual, which is also having a dual core CPU, Snapdragon 200, and this one is S4 Play, Snapdragon S4 Play, having a 1 GHz CPU. One thing which is quite good on the Moto E, which is not there on these two phones, but that is there on this one, is the RAM. So on Moto E, with this kind of hardware configuration, which is almost the same as we see on Sony Xperia Even Dual, this device has 1 GB of RAM. This device also have KitKat preloaded, so you get KitKat on Moto E as compared to the Xperia Even Dual, as compared to the Nokia X, which is again not KitKat. This is one is kind of, you can say, Jelly Bean, and this is also Jelly Bean, although this one is even forked Android. That means you will not get Google applications on this device, but still you can actually install applications. When it comes to Android, you can install any application on this device, but on this one you will have a less amount of RAM. You will not have KitKat, but this one has Jelly Bean 4.3, which is better than the Nokia X. Now if we take a look over here, the Moto E has 1 GB of RAM, and this one has KitKat 4.4.2, and this one is quite smooth in terms of the UI in transition. The UI is much smoother as compared to the UI which we see on Sony Xperia Even Dual, and as compared to the Nokia X UI, which is the slowest UI out of all these four in terms of transitions and animations. This one is little bit better, this one is still better, and I would say Moto E is actually better out of all these three in terms of the UI responsiveness and the kind of animations you see. This is the most smoothest UI which you will get on this device as compared to all these three, whereas the Micromax Unite 2 has a custom UI which is running on top of Android. This is also kind of smooth, but it will get laggy whenever you try running multiple applications in the background. So concluding our review, I would like to tell you that in case display is something which matters to you most, then you can always select the Micromax Unite 2. Or if camera is something which matters to you the most, if you want a better camera at this particular price point, you can always select the Micromax Unite 2. In case display clarity is something which matters to you, then you should always select Moto E out of these four. In case the overall UI should be smooth enough, it should be a stock Android UI, it should be the pure vanilla Android experience which you would like to experience on a phone, and it should be smooth enough, then you can always select Moto E in that case as well. And in case you would like to have a better performance from the device, if you are considering these three devices, if you want a better display resolution, then you should always select Moto E again, because this device will give you a better display resolution, a higher pixel density, a much crisp display, and a much better display in terms of color prediction, even if you compare it with the Micromax Unite 2. So all in all, the major comparison is actually, the major competition actually comes in between these two phones, which is the Micromax Unite 2 and the Moto E, because these devices actually lag behind in terms of the RAM. They have 512 MB of RAM. Again, the Nokia X Plus will have 786 MB of RAM, which is again not going to be 1 GB, so it will again lag behind. So this device, the Nokia X, is lagging behind in terms of the RAM department. In camera department, they are lagging behind. This device on the other hand even has the 4.3 Jelly Bean, which is better than this one in terms of software, but this one is also lagging on the RAM and the camera department. And even the display is something which is not at all good on the Xperia Even Dual, because this is a TFT display, which is again not too good in terms of the viewing angles as well. So these two devices are already out of the race. The main race is actually in between these two as far as the best phone in the 8,000 rupees segment, or any phone which is less than 7,000 rupees in the market which you can buy, is going to be these two. You can select this one in case you want a better display, you want a smoother UI, in case you want a better build quality, then you should always go for Moto E. In case you want a bigger display, you want a better camera, you want a front camera as well, then you should always select the Micromax Unite 2. In terms of battery performance, this device is again on the lead as compared to this one. The UI is smoother, so you can take the decision as per your preference out of any of these four phones which you would like to select. For me, the major competition is actually in between these two. These two are already out of the lead, but there is one more phone which might come into the competition later on, which is a Windows phone, and again I'm going to show you that one as well. This is the Nokia Lumia 630 dual SIM Windows phone. This is the first dual SIM Windows phone which has been launched in the market. I'm going to show you the overall device capabilities of this device, and I'm going to compare this one as well. As of now, again, this device is actually on the higher side in terms of the price segment. This one is above, you can say, above 10,000 rupees. As of now, it is selling for 11,000 rupees. So this one is a device which will come for 10,000 rupees even if you are considering the single SIM version. However, all the phones which we compared as of now, they all four are dual SIM, whereas this one is actually a dual SIM, but this one will cost you 11,500 rupees for the dual SIM model. So if I compare this one as of now in between these two, which is actually the major competitors in terms of the selection as of now, this phone is a Windows phone. This will give you some new features which you can access, which are part of the Windows Phone 8.1 UI. You have good UI optimization which they have done. They have introduced the notification center, which is called the action center. In this case, they have done a lot of customizations as far as the home screen is concerned as well. So this device is going to be in a competition with these two phones, maybe not now but later on once the price actually drops down for the Nokia Lumia 630. But I would say this is also a pretty good phone. In build quality department, this is one of the best phone you can actually buy. This one comes very closer to Motorola Moto E. Even I would say this one is slightly better than Moto E in terms of the build quality, whereas the Micromax Unite 2 is the weakest in terms of the build quality out of these three. When we talk about the camera is again better on Micromax Unite 2, but it is the best on the Nokia Lumia 630, and this is something which I am saying after testing the camera on these two devices. Even when you do not have LED flash, you get a very good low light photos on this device. However, with dark environment you will not be able to use LED flash in this device, whereas you can use this one. But again, not many people actually use LED flash these days. So in terms of the camera department, again I would like to say that this device actually comes on the first position. Even when it has a 5 megapixel camera, it can record 720p video. This one can also record 720p video, but the kind of pictures you get on this device is going to be better than the Micromax Unite 2 as well in terms of camera, whereas the Moto E is actually on the third place in terms of camera performance. So as far as the hardware is concerned, this device also have the option of micro SD memory card, just like these two. Even when it is a Windows phone, they have that option, and you do have the option of installing applications directly to the micro SD memory card, and you can actually install applications from the micro SD memory card as well. So this is something which is there on this one. You do have this feature on this one as well. You can actually install applications on the SD card on the Micromax Unite 2, whereas you do not have that feature on the Moto E. That means you cannot actually install applications on the micro SD memory card on this device, but you can install applications from the micro SD memory card. You can move certain applications from the phone memory to the SD card, but you cannot install anything on the micro SD memory card, which is the weakest point for this one. When we talk about the overall display resolution, the display resolution is 514 to 960 on this one. This one is having the 418 to 800, and Nokia Lumia 630 having a display resolution of 418 to 854 pixels spread over 4.5 inch of display. So if we talk about the display size, this one has 4.3 inch of display, this one has 4.5 inch of display, and the Micromax Unite 2 is having a 4.7 inch of display. So the display is increasing in this order. Again, if you want a bigger display, you can always go for this one, but pixel density will be lowest on this one. You will get a pixel density of around 218 pixels per inch on this device, whereas the pixel density is higher on this one, which is 256 pixels, whereas this one is having a pixel density of 199 pixels. So again, if you want a crisp display, you can always select Moto E as well out of these three in terms of the display clarity, in terms of the display color reproduction. The color reproduction is better on this display as well. This one also is better in terms of color reproduction, and the viewing angles are also good. So display is going to be better on these two phones, whereas the display is going to be least on this one, which is going to be on the third position in terms of the display clarity, in terms of the display resolution, and the pixel density you will get, as well as the color reproduction is going to be on the third number on this one as compared to these two, but this one is going to be on the first on the color prediction department. This one is going to be on the second position in terms of the color prediction department, and this one is going to be on the third position. So you can again take your decision out of all these phones which are there in the market, which are going to be under the price segment of approximately 10,000 rupees or under 8,000 rupees. Some of them are, so you can buy any one of them as per your own preference. But one thing I would like to say is that the major competition is actually in between these three. These two are already out of the lead, so in any case you want to select any phone, you can select any phone out of these three based on the points which I just highlighted. If you want a better display, you can always go for Moto E. If you want a better camera, you can always go for Nokia Lumia 630 or Micromax Unite 2, based on your preference, whether you want a Windows phone or whether you want an Android phone. So that's all from us. Do let me know if you have any specific question for any of these budget devices. I would love to help you. You can like this video if this video helped you by clicking the like button below. You can subscribe to our YouTube video channel for more videos like this by clicking the subscribe button below. Thanks for watching this video. This is Abhishek signing off. Thank you.